Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for our very first game of this particular tournament that I'm going to actually be streaming and casting? Well, I hope you are, because we have got the first one finally ready for you. One quick moment. All right, are you ready for this map intro? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Terraform, our first map of this best of 3 series. You may think you know what's going on, but I have no idea what's going on. You know why? Because at these LANs, anything can happen. For example, in the top left-hand corner, we have as the purple Terran player, this is Mental Squid. And in the bottom right-hand corner, representing UFC, and he's the guy who organized this StarCraft event, this is the Red Zerg Blast. Now, we do have ourselves a TVZ on Terraform, or should I say Terranform. There has indeed been a fair amount of talk about this particular map being maybe a bit Terran favored, or is it really just mech favored? Mech is quite good. This map can lend itself, because of some of the choke points and how the way this map breaks up, this map can indeed lend itself to a very abusive choke pointy style, where Terran has some pretty good opportunities. Say, for example, if the Zerg expands here, Hellions, siege tanks, whatever you want on the other side of the mineral deposit is indeed going to do a lot of damage. If Zerg tries to take, say, this gold base, Hellions, siege tanks, same thing there. We've seen a lot of games, TVZ particularly, on this map. Of course, in the map pool, it's one of those maps which is most commonly liked by a lot of people. Of course, not everyone likes this particular map, but a little bit of cheeky action from that drone, but lots of people do enjoy this. So, to kind of wrap things up, one base, 1-1-1, I'm assuming is going to be coming out from Mental Squid, and certainly a hatch before pool coming out for our friend Blast. So his hatchery is just about completed. He hasn't gotten any Zerglings just yet, adding on 2 thus far. We'll have to keep an eye on if he decides to add on a couple more. If he adds on any more than 2, we'll have to see, is it 4, is it 6? Because any more than about 6, and we suddenly have a situation on our hands, he needs to do some sort of damage. After that, he's just looking for more drones. Now, keep in mind, that was a very late expansion. He's playing maybe a little bit too cautious, a little bit too slow. Ooh, does indeed block this factory multiple times. Wow, Blast busted out a proxy hatchery. GG, Blast does indeed take game number 1. I just realized there was no game sounds for that particular match. So, Blast takes game number 1. As we try to figure out which camera is the correct one to go to, this is the correct camera to go to. Boys and girls, that was a very silly game coming out from Blast. Actually ends up blocking the factory, trying to get the factory onto the reactor, and he blocks his Terran opponent from being able to do that, and then GG, well played. That is the end of that particular game for our Terran player. Now, our second map is indeed going to be, I believe, Bridgehead. Oh, I thought they did map choices beforehand. It looks like they may not have actually done. This may be a loser pick scenario. So actually, we're going to be jumping into Coda, and we're going to be, once again, with the same sort of TVZ action. We're going to grab the WCS Game Heart extension mod. Hopefully, we will indeed have a co-commentator joining me at some point. We do have a second mic. We do have a second chair, as you can see, all set up for the co-commentator. But at the current moment, No one's here. Hopefully it'll be Havoc. Hopefully it'll be someone else. I don't actually know who else would be interested. Apparently, we have a guy named Spectre here who is a potential to take this tournament, one of the highest ranked players in this particular event. Let's get the ready from both of these guys. Once they boast, once both of these guys actually choose their races, because Blast has a habit of not changing his default Terran to Zerg, and so as a result, we have to wait for him. We are going to be heading into our first game momentarily. Are you ready? Those violins mean that the first game is on its way as we are about to jump into Coda. But what good would this map be without, well, a map intro? All right, we do indeed have spawning in the top left-hand corner of Coda. This is our purple Terran player. This is Mental Squid. And in the bottom right-hand corner, our red Zerg player. He's currently up 1-0. Is he really going gas first? Or is that an extractor trick? Okay, for a second I thought he was going gas first. I was like, that's weird, but no, this is Blast. And this guy Blast, is he really going to do what I think he's going? No? Okay. I was like, is he going for his third hatch as his natural and then going to take basically 3 hatch before pool? That would be a little bit crazy. We do have an earlier gas coming out from Mental Squid. It was either an 11 or 12 gas, and he's going to follow it up with a 13 racks. This is, of course, an interesting slight variation on the 12-12 Reaper Fast Expand opener that was oh so popular. It is going to be hatch or pool before hatch in this particular case, coming out from Blast. Now, with this particular pool timing, we're not looking at a 10 pool or an 11 pool or anything earlier like that. It was a 14 or a 15 pool. I did miss the exact timing. But, oh my word, Blast is actually going to be going for potentially something a little bit sneaky. Otherwise, I would say it's just a drone scout. But with this guy Blast, it could be almost literally anything. He could proxy hatch you. He could do whatever he feels like. Why? Because his name is Blast, and he is currently up 1-0 in this best of 3. Now, keep in mind, during the group stage, it is all best of 3s, and then we do kick it into a double elimination top 8 bracket. Now, this factory is likely just a little bit later than it would have been with some other builds. I believe this is like Mental Squid's attempt at the innovation variant of the 12-12. And so he's like, I'm going to get my, my racks a little bit later. It does mean that for the first couple of minutes, a lot of parts of your build are slowed down. But after that, the build is significantly faster in the timings that you get pretty much everything. Very late hatchery coming down for Blast. As you can see, his extractor was indeed the choice after that pool. So a little bit worrisome, because there are a lot of Hellion openers that can indeed put a lot of pressure on a Zerg player if they're not ready for it. In this particular case, we don't have a proxy hatch blocking the factory. We don't have anything silly going down from Blast just yet. Instead, he's going a little bit more standard. He's going a little bit safer. And when I say a little bit, I mean he still played pretty darn greedy. He did indeed skip out on a lot of the normal things that you would see. Like, for example, if you get the pool first, yeah, you get your queens out much, much sooner. But he also didn't go for any lings. He instead is just going drones, and then he indeed went extractor. So he ended up getting that gas a little bit faster than he otherwise would have. Has his first 100 gas pulled. He's not getting speed just yet. The question, of course, is this going to be like fast layer? 2-base Muta is a pretty darn common build. He does drop the speed right there. And our command center is actually on the way for Mental Squid, a variant of the 1-1-1. So while this opened up like a 1-base 1-1-1, he's indeed going for a delayed natural expansion. It's not as fast as it would have been if he would have been going for a normal build order. Instead, he is indeed going for something that's a little bit weird. His second gas being added on, it's very possible that this tech lab on the racks is going to be for a cloaked Banshee. Starport is not going down. He's actually getting a second factory, a double factory build. Most mech openers don't actually start this way, which is why it's a little bit weird to see this. However, coming out of Mental Squid, he's got his first 2 Hellions. Now, the important thing is to often not lose the Hellion. We do have the Spine Crawler going down, which in many cases is indicative of a 2-base sort of Muta build. You don't want to get the Roach Warren. You don't want to spend the resources getting out defensive options. So one way that you can get a little bit of extra HP, get a little bit of extra defense is to drop down that Spine Crawler. 3 Hellions into the main base of Blast. He pulls his drones. This is a lot of drones all pretty much lined up. They're not quite going to go down just yet. First volley does kill 2 drones as a couple more are turning to fight, and this has actually been a pretty good defense coming out from Blast. Loses 4 drones for 4 Hellions, a 5th drone anymore, and he's going to be in potentially a lot of trouble. He's down to 28 versus 27 workers. Keep in mind, this is a double orbital Terran player. This is not the previous Legacy of the Void patch. He does indeed have those mules. On top of that, Blast just getting supply blocked. A lot of problems coming in for Blast past the first minute or 2. So we'll have to see if the execution of his build can maybe step up a little bit here and get just a bit better. Is his layer going to be leading him towards a Spire? That's my question. We do now have the Armory finishing up. This is a little bit later than it ordinarily would have been if, say, for example, you were going for a more standard build where you generally add on your additional factories, factories 2 and 3 after the starport. In this case, factory number 2 was before the starport. Factory number 3, it looks like, was just a little bit before the starport as well. Armory finishing up in just a couple of moments, but we've got the engineering bay as well also on the way. So he's going to be able to get those turrets, which is important in defense against Mutalisks. Spire. It's one of those things that Zerg players just love, love, love. Why? Because Zerg units are pretty good when they're flying, when they're in the air, when they're throwing those glaive worms and being absolutely terrifying. I can speak from personal experience. All right. Creep spread is one of those things that we can kind of judge a player's skill by, and this is not often how you see it spread, but if your spread gets out on the map and it's slowing the Terran player down, good for you. 3 missile turrets going to be coming up. Now, the interesting placement here means that, of course, this natural expansion is a little bit open. Widow mines at the front could be repositioned potentially behind, you know, the refinery somewhere else. Just, you know, there's all sorts of things that you can do with Widow mines that are sneaky. Rax is actually floating out. So as long as you get up to 3 factories on your 2 base, or you're starting to add on factories 4 and 5 as you're moving towards your 3rd base, losing that barracks isn't necessarily a big deal. But if you lose the barracks before you add on those additional factories and get your production up and running, it can be absolutely devastating. Very curious build coming in here from Blast, because he's not only adding on the 3rd base, but the infestation pit as well. Is this going to be for infestors, or is he going to be using it to get to that hive tech and potentially go for something a little bit even later game? Are we talking Ultralisks? Are we talking Vipers? There's all sorts of things that he can do. Heading out into the first missile turret. He's going to be forced to kind of engage with this missile turret. Keep in mind, this is 8 mutas right here, right now, and there's a couple of Widow mines which could very well nearly end this group of Mutalisks. Actually, sniping these add-ons would definitely be annoying. Shutting down some of the production as the add-ons get reconstructed would definitely be a bit troublesome. 2 Marines step forward. 2 Marines get knocked down as Blast is going to be moving forward with these mutas. Trying to snipe down the factories could just shut down that that tech lab and then potentially move on. I don't know if he's actually going to kill the factory before the unit pops out. Now, this first Thor does come on out. Muta's trying to magic box the Thor, but with the repair on these SCVs, the Thor will end up going down just because the SCVs end up going down as well. 8 Mutas actually kind of tearing apart this Terran base. Keep in mind, there's a hive behind this, so if... Ooh, reasonable Widowmine shot. Not great, not too good, but reasonable as the Mutas do indeed pull away. He slowed down production, potentially. He pulled SCVs off the line, but Blast isn't necessarily out of the woods yet. With Hive on the way and without a lot of units out on the field, he cannot rest easy just yet. He's been, of course, working on a bit of creep spread. He's been working on droning up that third base. And, of course, we've got 3 command centers from our Terran player, which means triple mule. He didn't lose a lot of SCVs, and he is 15 behind. But those mules, especially once he takes his third base, can help make up for that fact. Unfortunately, this Pult Viking, well, unfortunately for Blast, this Pult Viking is actually doing a bit of damage, being a little bit annoying and clearing up some of those overlords. Additional missile turrets have indeed gone down. We've got Widow Mines at the front, missile turrets at the back, so the defense is actually not looking too bad. Ooh, actually uses a Widow Mine shot on that overlord. Hopefully for him, there won't be any particular Zerg run-bys in that area, because now that Widow Mine is going to be, you know, basically useless for a little bit longer. 5 Muta is going to be showing up. Keep in mind, Hellions at the third base going to be running into some Hydras. These are the defensive options that Blast needs to deal with Mental Squid. Pushing in a little bit, does turn around. An additional command center going to be coming up. And this Viking getting pushed away, but Widow Mines, missile turrets, and more Widow Mines as they shred every single one of those Mutas. And oh, this just turned into a pretty bad day for Blast. He lost virtually every single one of his offensive units that were on the opponent's side of the map. And as a result, he's going to be forced to play a little bit more defensive because, again, if we're taking a look purely at the army, it's going to be hard for Blast to actually break into a meching Terran who doesn't want to move out. Now, sure, if Mental Squid actually moves out of his base, starts putting himself out there, there's some vulnerabilities that Blast can exploit. But at the current moment, we're seeing a mech Terran turtle it up. Vipers are going to help Blast break this once he eventually gets them out. Ultralisk Den is also on the way, and he's eventually going to be able to look towards that super late-game Zerg army. There's several ways that a Zerg can go when trying to deal with mech. You can, of course, try some sort of Roach Hydra Viper combination, constantly pulling away the mech army. We've seen guys like Biol get up to 10 or 12 Vipers, keep really high Viper counts, and use the Vipers to slowly pick away the Terran army, never directly engaging. Or we see other guys go for a big Mutalisk transition. Jaedong was one of the guys who was known for that sort of gameplay, where he's like, all right, I'm going to go late game. I'm going to suddenly have like 40 Mutas, and you are not going to be ready for it. A lot of Zerg players do say that playing against mech is all about not necessarily trading, but kind of like killing off the mech army and then just hoping, because you're never going to trade effectively, and then just hoping that your remax after remax after remax is what's able to win you that war of attrition. But again, that's not the only way to fight a mech army. Blast, thus far, has indeed chosen to go for some Ultralisks. He's kind of mixing it up. I don't know that he actually has enough of any of these units to really break through this position. Blinding Clouds are going to be extremely important as we head into this engagement. Ling's going to be stepping forward. They do get pushed back a little bit here by these tanks, and if he goes into these Widow Mines, everything's clumped up. First set of Blinding Clouds on top of the clump of tanks is going to be able to negate a lot of the damage that they're putting out. Vikings going to be targeting down some of the Vipers in the sky, meaning this Ultralisk, well, this Ultralisk Hydra combo actually needs to do a lot of damage. It doesn't even need to just kill this army. It needs to go for that economy as well. Shutting down this third base while Blast is taking his own fourth. Getting those upgrades as well is going to be so darn important, as he's going to be targeting down that command center. Ultralisks, more of them going to be coming out across the map, and even a lot of Overseers to help him deal with these Widow Mines. Pushing forward, 9. Oh, that Widow Mine shot absolutely shredded so many of those Lings. And actually, these Thors, if they had any sort of tank support, could probably help hold against the Hydralisk. But this is just straight Hydra, pretty much versus Thor, which is not normally the situation that you really want to be dealing with. Now going to be stutter stepping back. Blast trying to deal with the SCVs, but Mental Squid needs to mount the defense. 2 tanks going to be popping on out. He's building additional Hellions as well. We'll have to see if he's able to get any run-bys done, but I'm not sure how well Hellions are really going to help him deal with this mainly Hydra-based composition. Keep in mind, Blue Flame is about to finish for our Terran brethren. He's down 0-1 in this best of 3. He absolutely needs to make this happen pretty much right here, right now, or else he is going to be out of this series. Now, with this being a group stage, I don't know that this is necessarily an elimination match for either one of these guys, but certainly Mental Squid doesn't want to go down right here, right now. He wants to be at least a little bit longer for this world, for this game. He's going to try to reestablish his third base, but now his army is significantly weaker than it was just a couple of minutes ago, and Blast is potentially going to be looking not as good either. It depends on if these Hydras are able to deal with the tanks, because, of course, if Hydras are just sitting at range, not able to get at the tanks, then that could definitely be a big problem. But not allowing this third base to be established as Widowmine's nearly cleaning up half of this Hydra army. They don't clean it up, though. That's the important thing. They nearly clean up half of this Hydra army. A lot of these Hydras are extremely low on HP. Swarm Host going to be moving forward. The mistake host, I think, is that, was he actually intending to build that Swarm Host? That is really the question that we have to ask ourselves. Hydra's getting absolutely destroyed. Every Overseer going down to the Thors as well. And Blast's entire army does indeed get wiped clean off of this map. Drone's going to be transferring over to the 4th base location as more Ultralisks, more Lings on the way. Quick recap of the upgrades. Terran sitting at 2-1 for Mech. And our Zerg player, on the other hand, who has built a pretty impressive creep highway right through the middle of the map, has indeed gone for himself +2 melee, +1 carapace. And as you probably noticed, he was indeed just going to be researching those missile attack upgrades. So relatively soon, he'll start to have better Hydras if that's indeed the comp he's going for. But every time our Terran player is allowed to remax, is allowed to do what he wants, it gets a little bit more difficult for the Zerg player. Now, the interesting thing, where, like, if this was a lot of other leagues of StarCraft 2, we'd be looking at this and being like, well, there's this case where a lot of meching Terran players like to take this as their 4th base. Mental Squid is like, I got the secret base. I got the secret strats. You think you know me? You have no idea. So we'll have to see if the hidden 4th base in the corner of the map is going to be doing Mental Squid justice. I'm not sure if it will. It may be the perfect thing that he needs to stay in this map. He's actually going to be adding on not one, but a 2nd command center over by his natural expansion. I'm assuming going to turn this one into a planetary fortress. This guy is rich. Look at all these command centers. He's wanting to dot down all of these missile turrets as well. You want to defeat Ultralisks? Setting up a crazy sim city is one way that we've seen players do that. Dealing with Ultralisks, if they get on top of your army, can be extremely difficult, whether you're playing bio or mech. But if you set up yourself a 6 sim city, you can definitely deal with Ultralisks in some creative ways. Grabbing the grabbing the 4th base gases as a meching player, gases 7 and 8, can be so crucial to maintaining your production, to actually keeping all of the things that you want going. Raven boys, are you ready for the ultimate mech army, the transition to Terran Air? Which actually, other than the Hellions, I'm kind of wondering, has Mental Squid stepped on like this creep pretty much at any point in this game? I'm not 100% sure. He doesn't need a lot of command centers when you've got Ravens to, of course, see everything on the map. Now, this is still a crazy amount of Zerg. Let's not undersell what Blast has been doing in this game. It is going to be difficult for him to break this mech position. Is it impossible? No, especially if we get more than one Viper. I'm not actually sure that we have any more than just the one Viper in this particular composition. As I say that, I reveal 4 more Vipers. So we'll have to see if there's going to be some sick blinding clouds. Thors, siege tanks, they get wrecked by blinding clouds. We've only got 3 Vikings in this particular composition from our Terran player. And no, he's got 5 in total, but they're not all here on the front lines. Even the planetary fortress could be blinding cloud, as the majority of these tanks not really doing anything for Mental Squid. Blast is going to be busting down the front door. The planetary fortress goes down. A lot of the siege tanks are now going to be able to fire as the stop command is given for just a couple of moments there. Hunter Seeker missile now going down on top of the Ultralisks. A lot of splash damage, eliminating some of this Zerg army, but he powers on through. Blast has almost nothing left in terms of HP, but his opponent, Mental Squid, has even less left. 2 tanks come down, but they're not set to attack. They indeed just die to the Ultralisks. Hydra's going to be tearing through this orbital command. The natural expansion has been busted. It's fallen down for Blast. Mental Squid has indeed a lot of problems to deal with. He's relocated himself over to the 4th base, but he can't quite deal with this army right here, right now. On that units tab, the majority of his army is indeed in Vikings and Ravens. Things that aren't very good versus Hydralisks. GG comes down, and Blast will indeed take this game. But will he be able to take the next series? That is the question that I'm going to be asking myself as we get into the next game. We're going to be, of course, taking a look at some more StarCraft 2 action because this is still the group stage of the UCF Gaming Nights, September 12th LAN. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's September 12th, 2015. WCS has concluded for the day, so what are you actually watching? I have no idea. If you're not watching this, this is the best StarCraft action you have ever seen in your life. I don't even know if there's better StarCraft that exists in the world. Pro League, Code S, SSL, nothing. WCS, nothing. The other events that I cast, like ASL, Team Gravity Fight Night, which have really great players, nothing. This is what it's about, this LAN right here, right now, in Central Florida, of course, at the University of Central Florida. Eventually, we may be getting myself a co-commentator for you guys to listen to the sultry sounds of their voice. It may be Havoc, it may be another fellow Spectrum. It depends on who gets kicked out of the bracket earlier. You know, who's able to do well in this particular event, who's not able to do well. I'm just going to do a quick bracket update. Oh, by the way, pretty solid casting. I like it. That's a good review. I will take that review any day. Boom. You want to know who I am? I'm the guy on the right. As you can see, other guy isn't quite here just yet. We'll end up getting other guy at some other point, and it's gone. So there you go, guys. All right. While this next game comes up, do you guys want to watch a video? Do you guys want to watch like some SC2HL Top 5 Community Plays Episode 3? Is that what you want? I think that's what you want. So let's get that set up for you. Otherwise, we could do all sorts of things. I got videos to play if you guys want them. All right, guys, Top 5 Community Plays going to be coming up just after this.